All right. Well, welcome everyone again to Shelter in Studio. My name is Chad. I'm the studio director, resident instructor at the San Francisco Center for the Book. And we started this program of studio visits way back when the shelter in place first started. I think we started in April. So thank you for being part of this today and for coming out to meet and see Li Jiang's studio. Li and I go back quite a while. We overlapped at Havila Press, which she might talk about a little bit, in Emeryville. But she now has her own studio called Lemoncheese Press in Berkeley that she's going to show us around today. And I'm really excited to have Li here. Li is one of our small plates artists this year, so she's going to talk about that a little bit. But it's just really, really great to see her studio and see all the stuff she's got set up and going on while we're doing exactly the sheltering in place. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Li Jiang.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. So I'll talk a little bit about how I got into letterpress, and then I'll show you a slideshow of some of the work that I've been doing. Most of you who know me as a printer, but I actually started bookbinding in college. And my then boyfriend, now husband, and I decided to learn how to make books. So we bought a book and built a couple of book presses and did some binding. Not our best work. And then after college, I briefly tried to run away with the circus. That didn't work. And then we moved out to California, and I started apprenticing letterpress with Richard Siebert and David Goins, and also taking bookbinding lessons. So it's been a while with Richard and David. I haven't gone very far. Can you see that door behind me? That on the other side of that door is David Goins' desk. So they're kind of stuck with me now. And then after apprenticing with Richard and David, I went and worked with Fred and Barbara Voltmer at Havila Press, learning how to print on hand press printers, iron hand presses. And so we've been doing a lot of iron hand press printing in the Bay Area at the center and also at the SF Public. And I've also worked for a couple of other Bay Area letterpress printers like Norman Clayton, who is now in Southern California, who had the studio tour last week, and also Joel Benson of Dependable Letterpress. So that's about it for that. I'm gonna screen share and show you some of the things, show you the studio. Thanks, Chad. So you guys should be seeing images of the studio, and we have the ubiquitous 10 by 15 CMP. It came with a motor, but it was very old, so I ended up putting the treadle back on, or a replacement treadle at least. And last week, Norman actually talked a little bit about how a lot of these presses that you end up with have a lot of history. And my press certainly has some history as well. This press came to me from Patricia Curtin, who is a Bay Area letterpress printer who does some beautiful botanical prints. And she takes make ready to a whole new level. You should definitely go take a look at her stuff. Then we have a Kelton etching press. I haven't quite figured out what date of this press is, but it's probably early 1910s, judging by the, I've been able to track that down from the address that's stamped on there, which is kind of cool. These were mostly used to print banknotes. So this is a picture of what the press looked like when we first bought it. That was certainly not the original color. So it promptly got taken apart and sent to the painters to be stripped and repainted. So a lot of my equipment actually came from Patricia Curtin as well. That stone you see in the slope bank in the back, the shelves of what looks like stationery and cards are actually part of my studio mate, Rigel's stuff. And we share a studio. And here's some wider shots. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. Let me know if I am. So that is a 9-foot wooden Hamilton typecase. It is pretty much all full at this point. The center section is their full-size cases, and the outer 2 sections are 3/4 cases. And the drawers are supposed to be for spacing material, but I kind of just use it as a catch-all for tools and whatnot. Oh, I should say that this was not how it looked when we got it. We definitely refinished it. The table on the left there you see is my drafting table where I'm sitting actually right now. It's a drafting table that I bought in college and it's been with me since then. It's the best $75 I ever spent in college. Some files as everybody has. And this is my binding bench that my husband and I made for me so that it's the right height for me. And underneath it, you should see some book presses, wooden book presses that we actually made when we started binding. So I still use those on occasion. And this is a Hacker proof press who is on loan from Havilah Press. And the Hacker is similar. It's like a Vandercook. It's a proof press, but it doesn't. The ink train doesn't move. Instead, the bed moves. So it kind of just goes out of the way. And it is completely manual. So even if I have to ink up the press, I have to turn the whole thing around and to get the ink on. So it's a little bit of a workout. So I like to joke that my studio is actually my gym. I work my arms on the Hacker and my legs on the CMP. So am I going okay, fast? Not too fast, hopefully. I'm going to talk a little bit about the process that I use and what I've been doing. Oh, here are my critters. I don't have any studio pets, but these guys keep me company. So what you're looking at here is an image that's been scratched into film. And this is a technique that I've been kind of working with for about 10 years now. The idea of actually just drawing directly into film and kind of using this new technology for letterpress in a sort of a traditional manner is really interesting to me. So I typically draw a key line onto the film and then I go make a plate and then I come back and I scratch out a little bit more and I make another plate and then that just keeps going. And so it's sort of a reverse reduction cut, but more of an additive process because the film's a negative. So this is one of the in-process stages for the film for that image. This is the final image of the film where it gets all complete scratched out. So when I'm doing these processes and separations manually, I have to kind of keep in mind what the order in which I'm going to be printing it is, and also what the coverage for each individual press runs are. So it's a little tricky to kind of keep track of. And that is a final print of what that looks like. So I'll talk a little bit about the small plates book that I've been working on. So normally when I approach a project, I take a look at the content and then I decide what, and I figure out what the binding structure is going to be and figure out what works. But for this project, this particular binding structure was something that I had found a while back and I really liked. And so for the small plates project, it's a little bit backwards for me process-wise. I'm actually I end up finding content to fit the structure. So this is a structure that is folded from a single sheet. It's a little bit of an origami project. It divides the sheet into 4 quadrants without any sewing, without any gluing. And you can sort of read it like a codex, but it has a little extra bits. But you can also kind of view it all at once. So that aspect of it was really appealing. So finding content to kind of match that structure, I started looking at things that were seasonal, and that seemed to kind of fit it pretty well. And so I started doing a sketch of the various animals and plants whose life cycle kind of revolves around a coast live oak. And the coast live oak is interesting because we actually have one in front of our house, a really big one, and it's also a Oakland native. And this is my color separation sheet to try to keep track of everything. To try to keep track of the order in which I have to scratch them and then the order in which they need to be printed.
Hey, Lee, I'm just going to jump in real quick and explain
Yep.
to who might not know. The Small Plates is a program that we do at SFCB every year where we invite artists, local artists, to send us proposals for a book that's going to be 4 inches by 4 inches. So that's a little bit of what Lee was alluding to when she said she had to fit the content to the structure. We had the constraint of the medium is that the book is going to be a 4-inch book. So just a little background for folks who don't know, and if you have more questions, you can throw them in the chat room. Back to you.
Thanks. So this is a little bit of a progress shot of what some of the film looks like now. So the really white lines you're seeing, hopefully you can tell, is actually just the scratching into it, but there's some really faint white lines, and that's from the sort of a white carbon paper that I've been using to transfer images onto film. Here's different stages. And on that, I will end with this slideshow. This is a sign we found in Sweden, which I couldn't resist. Any questions? Hello?
So far, no questions.
So no questions.
But here they come. They'll be coming in. Ever wants to know, how is your experience with letterpress influenced? How has it influenced your work or your printing?
It has definitely made me think about designing on press a little bit more. I definitely come from a graphic design background where everything is kind of planned out on the computer, and then there's that process of trying to convert what you've designed on the computer to the press. But you know, Fred and Barbara are very much kind of just using lead, and trying to design with just lead was a little bit of a challenge and different process for me. So that's been actually really enjoyable and fun, and different way of thinking.
I was curious what, trying to think of the best way to, but when you had that small plates idea, I remember the seasons, but then was the tree idea because of the one in the front yard, or is it kind of a mutual?
A little bit of both, I think. We've been in the house for 5 years, so I've kind of seen the cycles the tree has gone through. Like I was just thinking today, oh, the acorns have started dropping, and so the jays will be here soon, and the crows will follow that, and then I'll have to wash my car. So it's definitely a seasonal thing that I've been kind of following, and so being in tune with that has been it felt like it fit really well into the 4 seasons aspect of the structure.
Excellent. And where did the name Lemoncheese come from?
My husband's name is Jim. We met in college, and a friend was trying to say Jim and Lee, but he misspoke and said Lemoncheese, and I heard lemon cheese, and it just stuck. So, but it's good since we like food.
Excellent. What kind of lead printing do you do in the shop, for the most part? I mean, are you doing job work or just small piece work, or?
In the shop, I do job work, small piece work. I think the biggest I've done was a keepsake for John Windle. He commissioned a piece for the Roxburgh and Zamorano joint meeting. And that was a lot of fun because he found 2 articles about William Morris that hadn't been published. So he gave me free rein to do whatever I wanted. And, I don't have a copy with me right now, but if you go to my website, there are photos of it. But the booklet ended up being about 9 by 12, and I ended up choosing to set the whole thing in Gill Sands and surrounding it with other elements of designers who have been influenced by William Morris. So I kind of felt that was with that particular audience, I could take it to that level and not have to really explain what it is that I was doing. So things like that are really interesting to me. In terms of lead, with what I've been doing, hand setting stuff, some broadsides. I try to set lead as much as I can for the Center for the Book broadsides, for the Book Club of California broadsides. I've done a couple of those on the Columbian there. And small projects, baby announcements, things like that. Whenever I can squeeze it in, holiday cards, we do that too.
Excellent. We have someone in the room asking, how does one start out in this field? I mean, how did you said you started here and you found David and Richard. But how do you, the question is really, how do you start off to find a mentor or find the apprenticeship that gets you going?
Right. So I think for me that I was really lucky. In fact, on the day that I met Richard, I asked him that same question. I said, well, for someone who's interested in letterpress, where should I start? And he said, well, you should find an apprenticeship. And I was like, okay, well, short of that, because there aren't very many people who are just out having advertising looking for apprentices. he told me to go take classes at the Center for the Book, and basically told me to go away. But I persisted, and I came back, and they started letting me do projects on the Vandercook. So I think taking a class at the Center for the Book is a good way to kind of get a sense if this is something that you want to do. And if it is, then look for a print shop that is doing it, that is willing to take apprentices. And I think the sense that I get from a lot of job work printers is that they don't necessarily want to pay for someone just to teach them, because you have to get them up to speed until they're competent to actually help out in the shop. So it's a lot of investment for the printers themselves. So keep that in mind when you're approaching someone for a job. Just be persistent and figure out if this is really something that you really want to do.
Norman is curious if you can say more about the live oak imagery and how it will be used in that structure.
So the okay, so I'll just describe it, because I think the sketch probably wasn't terribly clear. So in the center of the sheet, there's the tree rings, and the tree rings actually talk a little bit about the approximately the things that would have impacted an oak tree in the past 40 years or so. That's how old I think our tree is. And around the tree are 4 different, how should I call it, sort of paths that trace each individual species. There's the oak tree itself, and talks about its life cycle of bearing acorns when it flowers, what the flowers look like, that kind of stuff. And then also other plants and fungi, and how they revolve around the tree itself. Like I have an oak moth that is very particular to oaks in California, and also coast live oaks specifically, and what their life cycle is like. So a little bit, I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it's one big sheet, right? Though it's one big 16 by 16 sheet that folds up into the 4 by 4.
Yes. So the tree rings itself is actually going to be hidden, which I found it really ironic and kind of appropriate, because you don't ever see a tree ring unless you cut the tree down. So having the tree ring be a little hidden was really interesting. And so what you're seeing just in the book itself, when you first open it, without opening up into the whole sheet, you're just seeing the little the periphery elements of the tree and the animals and the plants that surround it.
Excellent. So Li Jiang, who's a member of our board, said it seems nature has inspired a lot of your printing and pre-press work. Can you talk a little more about that in your view, and how you take that on? Relationship between nature and print. Sorry.
Okay. So a couple of the things, or people I should say, that have really influenced my work. One of them is Patricia Curtin, and she does some beautiful work about observing nature. And I've always been really kind of observant of nature, just kind of keeping your eye out and looking at what's happening. And I like to hike. We like to go out and look at things. So that is something that's always interesting to me. I feel like I'm a much better artist in terms of doing observational life studies as opposed to kind of modern design, modern art work. So or abstract work. So I think that kind of fits with the things that I'm doing. And besides, nature has some incredible colors that you take photos of, and you're like, well, that doesn't look real, but it is real. So there's always that kind of aspect when we're out hiking that I look at a scene and I'm like, how do I print that?
Yes, well, I love your multicolored prints. I think they're amazing. So, well, I think we are just about at the 1 o'clock hour here. So I just would like to say thank you to everyone for coming today. And thank you so much to Li for opening up your studio and talking about your work. Again, for those who haven't done this on the regular, we do Shelter in Studio pretty much every Thursday at 12:30, and we just visit people's studios. So if you know of a studio, or if you have a studio that you'd like us to come visit, shoot us a line. You can get me at chad@sfcb.org, or find us on the web at sfcb.org. And with that, we will say goodbye. Li, any parting words?
It's great to see everyone. Thank you. Hang in there.
All right. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for coming.
Thanks. Bye.